Here's Johnny.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the ControllerCast. My name's John, joined here by Ursel, Andrew, and Parker today. Today we're going to be talking about, obviously, how we're doing, some current events that we wanted to talk about, and then also our main topic, which for this week is The Shining. So let's not waste any time. Let's talk about how we're doing. I'll go ahead and start us off. I'm actually doing really well. I recently just got a new phone. Got the iPhone 12. It's pretty clutch, actually. The camera and the battery life so far is what I'm most impressed with. Also, I'm getting a tattoo pretty soon. I actually paid for it. I'm gonna get a rock on symbol and like skeletal like design, I guess. I think on my shoulder, but I haven't like fully decided on where I'm getting it yet, but I might have that by the next podcast, so I'll be able to talk about that. And besides that, nothing too much has been going on. I'm starting a new job tomorrow. Really excited about that.
Good shit, good shit.
Super ready to start that up. But let's go with maybe Ursel. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Before I go into my stuff, I gotta ask John, what finally prompted you? What sent you over the moon to go ahead and get a tattoo? I'm curious. I want to know.
So there's actually a new tattoo shop that opened up in Omaha. It's called Salvage Soul Tattoo, and it's on like 108th and Q, and they got a deal right now for $30 tattoos.
Holy shit!
And they have they've got a little like booklet of designs that you can pick. One of them was like Bart Simpson, which I almost want to go with that. But I'm gonna go with the rock on symbol because rock on. That's just kind of my attitude in life. Like rock on, bro.
Wags.
Wags, bro.
But yeah, I can go into like I guess what I've been up to, which hasn't really been much lately. I think I said this last week, but I've been just watching a lot of Seinfeld. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look back on my week, and I'm like, what have I been up to? And it's like, oh yeah, jack shit. So,
Same here.
So honestly, yeah, I'm probably at the same place you all left me last week. But Parker, yeah, did you want to talk about what you've been up to?
So I'm in the same boat as you are. So like my week was pretty uneventful, man. Just had work and just watched a bunch of movies, TV shows, that kind of thing. Just did not really do much, but it's just relaxing. Once you don't have much to do, because my store was actually closed the last 2 days for remodel, so I was actually off these last 2 or 3 days, which has been nice and relaxing, but that's been about it. How about you, Andrew?
Not been doing much. I went golfing last weekend, so I was noticeably absent from here.
You got to give us a 3-week update, bro.
Oh yeah.
You've been gone for a minute.
Let's see. So the weekend you guys were in Arizona, it was my birthday weekend, so I went to UNO baseball game, watched them choke that game away, unfortunately, and then went golfing that Saturday, and then I went golfing last Sunday for my dad's birthday, and then other than that, just been playing Pac-Man 99, making me realize how dog shit the Nintendo Switch Pro controller's D-pad is. It makes the game awful to play. And then I guess this week to flow in, I've just been entering into deeper and deeper dudes down bad territory because Dogecoin has skyrocketed this week, and I know Arso, you and me both are on the Dogecoin hype train for a while back at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And we both
too.
Yeah, we all divested our funds, and now we are in dudes down bad territory.
I did not.
Because the only person who is not down bad is Parker's brother, who is up big. So
He's
good for
up
him.
like over $3,000, which is absolutely
That's incredible.
Yeah,
You bought it
took a
before
look
it was even at a penny, right?
It was about when I bought it actually, but he just kept it
Wait, you have Dogecoin
Why didn't you
stock?
keep it, Parker?
because I lost money and I was scared and I had brick hands and I
No,
panicked.
paper hands. You have
In my
paper
Paper,
hands.
you have paper hands.
Yeah, you have
Same
paper
paper,
hands. You
yeah,
have the
you don't
opposite
have-
of brick hands.
I got major paper hands.
Yeah, you got thinking you have
Yeah,
diamond
so-
hands, boy.
Whatever it's called, I pussed out. That's a better way to say it. But
yeah.
dude, now I can see the thousands of dollars I could have made, man.
Yeah, so
Thousands.
I actually
That
had
sucks.
17,000 Dogecoins last summer, and I got rid of them for 0.002 cents per Dogecoin, and now it's 50
Andrew.
cents. So okay, but come on, I mean that was a whole year ago. Like I don't
Fair.
know. I probably could have held on to it because I only made $40, but I could have made $6,000 now.
I actually
but
lost money off that Dogecoin BS.
yeah, me too. So
I lost. I mean, yeah,
that's
like-
my dudes down bad of the week.
Yeah, well, like same here, kind of going off what you said, Andrew. But like, I was in the GME hype along with a lot of fellow soldiers. I was gunned down. Did not make it to the moon.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, my ship went crashing down as well as a couple of maybe just a few other people's. And so my dumbass invested into GME at like 300, thinking it was going to go to like 2,000 share, and that was a fail because it went up to like 450 and then just crashed, and I didn't pull out fast enough, so I lost like essentially half of the money I put in. And then seeing this Robinhood thing, I think someone said on Twitter once where it was like, if in relation to all the stock stuff, like if you're hearing about it on Twitter, you're too late. Like, and that's how I felt with this whole Dogecoin thing, because I was just like, yeah, this shit is like at what 40 cents when I'm looking at it. Like, I don't. That's what it for me, Chief. Like, I'll keep my like ears to the ground for the next whatever it might be, maybe Ethereum. but yeah, this one I missed out on, and I was upset because I did invest into Dogecoin during the whole GME thing, and it was at like 6 or 7 cents, and I was like, oh, like this is bullshit, like it's just gonna keep crashing, like this is dumb. But then lo and behold, a few months later we're at 40 cents. But John,
Funny enough,
yeah,
I was going to say, funny enough, one of the reasons that I wanted to leave my last job was because I couldn't invest like on my own. There were certain limitations and you had to like report everything. And we didn't have any way of reporting at my last job when you're trading cryptocurrency. So I couldn't do any of that. And I wanted to buy Dogecoin when it was at like 0.04 or like $0.004. And if I would have, I could have made it big, but I probably wouldn't have invested much more than like $100. Because I'm not a huge risk taker, but
yeah.
I do wish I would have gotten into it, but now I can. Now I got no problem with my new job. So that's really exciting.
Parker, you should talk about Blake and his.
Yeah, so basically, like, this is I'm pretty sure Blake got some way back, like when the GME stuff happened, and just kept
Blake is your brother, by the way.
Yeah, he bought it back in like February.
But he also just got more lately. Like, I think he had $200 or $300 in before, and he put like an extra 500 in. So now he has like $800, or he put a total of $800 in. And every time he shows me his Robinhood account, it's above $4,000. So,
My goodness. Well, hopefully Robinhood doesn't restrict his trading activity when he's trying to sell high.
Yeah. We're experiencing strange increase in user activity. We're gonna crash the site. We're sorry.
you can
Dude,
only
Robinhood
sell
is
your share
trash.
partially. Okay, you can only sell.
I got Coinbase for trading crypto. I'm not doing Robinhood. I'm not messing with it anymore. I don't trust it.
Yeah,
I don't know about you guys.
Robinhood kind of messed me up with the
Robinhood
GME
sucks.
stuff.
Robinhood sucks.
Robinhood's terrible.
Would not recommend.
But I guess we'll keep it going with the current events unless you guys had anything else to say on Andrew's paper hands with Dogecoin.
I'll take it on, John.
Perfect. So for my current event this week, I was actually going to talk about the new Nintendo Switch that was announced. Oh my gosh, we were all hoping for some Nintendo news this week, and we got some. What we got was a damn color revision of the Nintendo Switch Lite. So, all right, I'm all for color options when it comes to consoles, especially handhelds, but like I don't care about color revisions after the console's already been out for like what, 4 years now? Over 4 years? Like we're begging for a Nintendo Switch revision from Nintendo. At least I would like to see, like at the very least, I would like to see maybe some sort of Switch Pro. I think we've all been hoping for something like that, even if we're not all going to buy it. We've talked about that before. Like I think the blue is slick, but it's nothing to run home about. Like it's a cool color option if you don't already have a Switch. And Nintendo isn't catering to their existing fan base. That's what I'm getting at. Like you're not catering to your existing fan base. Like I just got my fiance a Nintendo Switch Lite. We got on the Nintendo Family Online plan, and guess what? You can't share games. You have to purchase them twice if you want to play together. So like, I just wanted to get your guys' opinions of this. Like, are color revisions and the approach to the Nintendo Online plan, like, is Nintendo making the right choices? And do you think they're catering enough to their existing fan base with like stupid color revisions? Arcel, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, go
whoever
ahead,
wanted to start off.
Parker, yeah, go for it, Parker.
So, yeah, man, you guys know how I feel about Nintendo. Like, and this is just feeding into it. Like, it's just feeding into my opinion in Nintendo where, man, they could not give a shit about the people that actually play the thing. I don't, man, it's what I've been noticing about the Switch lately. I don't know if you guys have noticed this among like Switch players, but I feel like a lot of people have been getting them just to play Animal Crossing for 2-3 weeks, and then they just never touch it again. And
I know people like that.
yeah, I feel
100%
like
know people like that.
And if you guys are wondering why the Switch sales numbers are so high, I feel like that's part of the reason why. But
it's the blue ocean strategy.
Yeah.
Which is what they used with Wii. Which is like getting the, like, I guess some people might not know what that is, but back then Nintendo's talked about how like they want to go by this quote unquote blue ocean strategy where they want to get like, they want to essentially snag, everyone in the sea, target that general casual audience. And that's where they found success with the Wii. And they're doing they tried to do that with the Wii U, but they're doing it again with the Switch, and it's clearly showing success for them because there's people like that Parker said that might buy a Nintendo Switch and play it for Animal Crossing or play it for Mario Kart, like super casually, like only play it when people come over, family console thing. I don't know, like I just imagine a casual Wii user copy paste that to a casual Switch user.
You saw more families playing the Wii though. You know what I mean? Like you saw more families playing together on that thing. I feel like the Switch is just solely for like those solo games.
And even if that is a reality, right? Like for Nintendo, they probably do not give a shit because
they just look at the sales numbers and they go, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Mario, I think I saw Mario Kart this week. Like it outsold Mario Kart Wii, right?
Yeah, it's the top selling racing game of all time.
Yeah.
But wow.
In terms of like going back to the color, Parker, I don't know if you wanted to go back and share your thoughts on the like color, but I thought it was kind of lame. Like compared to the Mario Red and Blue that we got a few months ago, like I thought it was kind of stupid in terms of the family sharing bullshit you've been having to deal with, John. Like I think that Nintendo, I think this is widely accepted. I don't think this is even like a contention even amongst Nintendo fans that their online services are garbage. That their online infrastructure, their online system is something like running like Wii era essentially, and that kind of goes along with the price that it's only $20 a month. But then it's only $20 a month, but I'm sure people would be willing to pay $50 a month, or not $20 a year. Jesus Christ, $20 a year. But I'm sure people would be willing to pay $50 a year if Nintendo came around and didn't have these stupid family sharing issues and like had a better online infrastructure, better online system. But I don't know if Parker or Andrew, you guys want to talk about anything?
Yeah, I think I like the color. I think it's cool, but I feel like maybe colors are something that they should also put in like a hardware upgrade, because I think that would drive existing users to get it. Because like for example, the Animal Crossing Special Edition one I got I got a Switch back in 2017, like a couple months after it came out. So I had the original one with like the really poopy battery life, and it the fan turned on like after like 3 seconds of Mario Kart. So then when the Animal Crossing Special Edition came out, I ended up getting that because it was like an incremental hardware upgrade where it's got double the battery life, and the processor just runs more efficiently. So I think like if you're going to make a color, I think make something on the hardware that's going to like set it aside from everything else, because like just if you do a color and don't revise it, and the Switch Lite does need a revision if they're going to keep it going, because that thing, I mean, the battery life, from what I've heard, and John, since Casey has one, you might know differently, but I've heard the battery life is pretty poor.
It's pretty bad.
Obviously you can't hook it up to a TV or anything.
I would say it's comparable to the original Switch.
Yeah. See, and if you're making a new one, like not many people are going to go out and buy, well, they say it's blue, but it looks purple. A new Switch Lite just because of the color. I think if you put like a hardware upgrade like they did for the Mario edition and the Animal Crossing edition of the OG Switch, then I think they could drive sales. But I think it's pretty unnecessary. I mean, it's a cool concept to be like, hey, you have like all these colors, but the fact that the Switch Lite came out like 3 years ago, I think it came out a year after the original one. So the Switch Lite's been out for like 3 years and they have no hardware revisions, and pretty much anybody who probably wanted one already got one. So then like, you go on their tweet and people are like, hey, I bought this in like 2018 when you had this ugly yellow and ugly like teal colored one, and now you're putting out like pink and purple and like good colors and stuff. So like, I think it pisses off more people than it's going to like bring in, but that's just my opinion on it. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that really just highlights how Nintendo really isn't catering to their existing fan base. They're continuing to try to drive hardware sales. And again, they're suffering on the software front because of that.
Yeah. And honestly, John, I think that's like a really good point. And I think that's kind of connecting to where I wanted to take my current event, where I feel like there's some sort of mismanagement. I feel like there's a lot of parallels going on between what's happening with Nintendo and PlayStation. So going into my current event, it was half an update on kind of our stories from last week, but also just general other news. And so what happened? So basically, let's start with the update. Last week, we had a story that came out, kind of a very juicy story in the video game world, where Jason Schreier, big investigative journalist in the video game world, used to be at Kotaku for the longest time, went to Bloomberg, really famous for like these big expose articles on a lot of big game development studios, essentially. He talked about how Days Gone 2 got canceled, and there's like, because the game didn't get critical reception, they're trying to shift more of their focus to big games instead of just like smaller games, maybe like something akin to like Little Big Planet or some other smaller titles. And then there's a story, and this was the most popular story last week, that a Last of Us 1 remake was coming out. I think our general consensus on the show last week was why were they doing this? Seems kind of like, I mean, yeah, it would be nice to have Last of Us 1 updated, but it's like, it felt like a waste of resources. And at the end of the day, Last of Us 1 is still very replayable as a game. Like it's not like, dated to the point of like you can't play it. Yeah, it's dated, but it's still playable. And still looks good graphically. But pretty much the update to this story was Jason Schreier went on a podcast and talked about, for one, he was surprised the reception the article got, because he didn't mean it to be a hit piece. And he was pretty much talking about how it actually makes a lot of sense at Naughty Dog, why there's a Last of Us Part 1 remake happening, because originally this wasn't even their project. They're actually helping another studio out with it. And what happened was, after The Last of Us Part 2 came out, a lot of the programmers and developers at Naughty Dog, they didn't have anything to work on, because Neil Druckmann and all the creative forces of the studio were like, they're still in the process of, figuring out what their next thing actually is. Maybe what's going on with characters, what's going on with, is it a new IP? Is it a sequel to a, Last of Us or Uncharted or whatever it might be? So a lot of the developers didn't have anything to work on. Some people went to go finish Factions 2, which is like, I guess, in its final stages. So a lot of people just were like, hey, let's just help the studio with the Last of Us remake, because it's a good use of our manpower up until, our next project starts fully rolling. So I guess I wanted to just talk about, what did you guys think of this now that there's some extra information has come out? Are you still kind of like, what the hell is going on? Andrew, you can kind of give some more summarizing thoughts on the whole situation, because I know you weren't here last week. But what about Andrew? Do you want to start off, actually, since you're going to give your kind of fresh take to a lot of this stuff?
Yeah, so I think Sony's trying to do the Nintendo thing and just milk successful games until they are just completely dry, which seems kind of like the way the industry goes, just with Rockstar and GTA, and then Nintendo just re-releasing every game from the Wii U on the Switch.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing that I forgot to add, and pretty much like how I was gonna connect it to Nintendo. Like when you were saying it, Andrew, also is like, I feel like we're in this period of like, I guess what I want to say is, I think a lot of this stuff is reflected by leadership, because I was kind of having this thought where I'm like, it feels like Nintendo and Sony are on this very like arrogant trajectory that they're on, where they're like maybe stuck in certain ways and don't want to change things, and they're feeling very comfortable with their success. And I was like, I feel like this might have to do with leadership. So I was looking around, I did a Google search earlier this week, and I feel like a lot of these weird mannerisms or activities or decision making that's been going on with Nintendo, and I think Sony also more recently, has been with change of leadership. I think when Reggie Fils-Aimé dropped out and Doug Bowser came in, which was in 2019, right? I think that was like a very big transition point for, I feel like since that point onward, you look at Switch's lifespan, pre-2018, pre-2019, there's bangers. That was probably a lot of what Reggie, gave the green light to. And I feel like now we're entering the Bowser era, and it's like, and it's kind of like, we have, jack shit idea of what the hell is going on at Nintendo. It feels like Doug Bowser doesn't like to communicate shit. And it feels like they've been doing a lot of anti-consumer, very business centric thinking, not as creative thinking. I feel like with Sony, that's kind of going on too, where, during the PS4 era, a big majority of it, a lot of, the games you saw that came out at the end of the PS4 era, Last was Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, those were greenlit when Sean Layden was the president of the studio, back in the early to mid PS4 era, we had Sean Layden, Andrew House, Shuei Yoshida, all these like people, even end of PS3 era, you had like Kevin Butler, you had personality. Then Sean Layden got kicked out, or he resigned. And I think around 2019, Jim Ryan stepped in. And ever since Jim Ryan has been a part of PlayStation and leading PlayStation, it's been a lot more business centric. It feels like a lot more straight to the point, So I feel like a lot of this has to do with the leadership as well. But okay, that's all I had to say on it. But go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really like the idea of beating a dead horse. I'd like to see some original ideas. Like, The Last of Us, is a great game, but it's already been remade once. Like, at this point, it literally just looks like a money grab, just like GTA 5 and Rockstar looks. Why can't you make a new GTA 5 or a new GTA game instead of just making GTA 5 last, like, what, it came out 8 years ago now, and I mean, it it'll probably come out maybe on the 8th anniversary of when it originally came out. I don't really know. But like, it's like, man, like I get it from a business perspective, because obviously GTA 5 is like not slowing down at all on that part. And The Last of Us is insanely popular. People get Sony consoles sometimes to just play The Last of Us and Naughty Dog games. But I mean, I think if you're gonna remake a game for a third time, maybe make like Uncharted 2 or something. I mean, I mean that they remastered it, but I mean on the PS4 it really just looks like it's just an upgraded PS3 game. I'd like to, if they put in like the engine they used on Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us 2 on Uncharted 2, it would be a whole different ball game. Really, it'd be insane.
And just to your point, Andrew, like this is kind of a funny little note. Because this was actually a support, like some unnamed support studios project, right? And then Naughty Dog is helping them out. When they were starting out for wanting to work on a remake, they were going to actually remake Uncharted 1, but then they decided not to because they said it was too hard. Like they're like,
it's too hard.
Too hard.
Oh, it's too hard.
Yeah.
Too many resources and dollars will go into it. Oh, we won't make our money back.
Too hard.
Oh man, too hard. We're one of the biggest video game companies in the world, but this is too hard. Oh man. Whatever, man.
But John, like now with these, like I guess more filling of the gaps of the story, and like maybe my take on leadership. Like, do you have any thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, my main thoughts are around the business-centric idea.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that Nintendo and PlayStation are being more business-centric by just remaking games. I'm sure that in a way it takes less dollars and less resources or whatever, and the payout may be, more than what the cost would be. So like, you take what it costs to make minus what you made, maybe that gap is bigger with remakes, but like, dude, at this point, you've got to bring out something new. And, we've talked a lot about game preservation, and I think that people, want to see games preserved and old games remade here and there. But with this Last of Us thing, dude, we got a remaster for the PS4. I don't think anyone was really asking for a remake, let alone not a remaster, a remake, which whatever that means. Are they going to update, the play style, the physics, everything? I would think that would take almost as much resources as making maybe a smaller game, like a new Crash game.
Yeah.
I don't know if Naughty Dog owns that anymore, but
yeah, I think also like this was a thing that like Jason Schreier also mentioned was I guess their plan is, so like maybe they're hoping their pre-production for their next game will end in like a year or two, right? They get off this remake project in a year or two. It's closer to like the 10-year anniversary of the game, and I think their plan was to essentially make it in the Last of Us 2 engine and call it like Last of Us Part 1, and they would release like a complete bundle around the 10-year, and like it would be like one complete thing, and you could play essentially like the entire game in the same engine, the whole story from like the start of Last of Us 1 to the end of Last of Us 2 in the same engine. I think that was what their thinking was from what he said, reported.
To be honest with that, I think that's a good idea, but don't tell us. Don't tell us, honestly, because now we're talking about it and now we're debating, your business practices and your creative practices. Like, we're all talking about it now. Our listeners know about it. Like, people are talking about it on YouTube videos. I see it. So I think that would have been a good idea if they just kept it in the dark, I think.
Well, they didn't mean, like, this wasn't something that Sony reported. This was something that he leaked. So it was out of, it was out of the goal.
Really? Well, I guess that may change my thoughts on it a little bit, but if that's all their studio is working on, it might be a while until we see a great new game for PS5 from Naughty Dog. And I think that's a shame, honestly.
Yeah,
They're one of the
I
best
agree.
developers in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly.
But Parker, what were your thoughts on all of this?
So basically my position last week was that like the Last of Us remake should be out farther until they get more graphical updates, like maybe 8K. Like imagine The Last of Us in 8K. That would be nuts. But honestly, I think Naughty Dog could be spending their time with some new ideas at the moment, just because, like you said, John, a Crash game, that would be awesome.
Just like a smaller game.
Yeah, nothing crazy. Like just come up. It's just the whole gaming market lately has just been shifting to these remakes, and I get it, easy money, but man, it's just so boring seeing the same games come out over and over. I just, it's nice to have some fresh stuff, and I think Naughty Dog knows what they're doing, so I don't want to bash them too hard. They're like one of the best game companies out there. But I feel like they could definitely be using those man hours doing something else other than a Last of Us remake. Like they could be coming up with new ideas, doing brainstorming, how they could make their games look better. But yeah, I just I really do love Naughty Dog. Like I can't talk too much shite because they're one of the best game companies out there, especially in terms of how their games control, how their games look. There's just nothing that compares. So in the end, I ultimately know that they know what they're doing. So I'm not too worried. I want them to start coming up with new ideas very soon. But I think we can move into my topic now for
Yeah.
my current event for the week. So basically, everybody knows in November of last year, Alex Trebek unfortunately passed away. And this has led to some interesting Jeopardy hosts over the past few months. I actually have a full list here. So we've had Dr. Oz actually is the host.
Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz
Yeah.
is a doofus. He's a doofus, dude. He's an idiot.
I do not like him. He's just but after that we had Aaron Rodgers. So
Yeah.
I thought this was just goofy because Aaron Rodgers just looked like an ultimate pretty boy with the hair slicked to the side, and it was pretty funny to see because one of the guests on the Jeopardy show, or one of the contestants, actually just randomly for an answer put, "Who decided to kick that field goal?"
Oh
Just
yeah.
referencing the
no.
NFC Championship game, and Rogers just laughed and said, "I don't know about that one. But that's a wrong answer." Like he just slipped it off and didn't want to talk about it.
Lame.
But we know who some future guests are going to be, and I think, and these are some names that I really look forward to actually seeing. So we got Anderson Cooper coming next. CNN's Anderson Cooper will be on from April 19th to 30th. Got Bill Whitaker after that. Got Buzzy Cohen, who is a previous contestant. Maim Bialik, that's how you pronounce it. And then Sanjay Gupta. And then after that, they're supposedly looking at getting Joe Buck on there. I saw an article saying that they were getting Joe Buck. So
God, if we don't have to hear enough of his annoying ass every Sunday.
Joe Buck.
Jesus.
What is with them and doing all these like sports casters? I don't get it.
I will say though, Aaron Rodgers, I think Aaron Rodgers could be if he feels the need to retire from the game of football and go be a Jeopardy host,
Yes,
I will not stop him. I will not stop him ever.
Me and Andrew are both NFC North fans, so we would love to see that. That would make our teams win a lot more games. But
I mean, other than that, he was a really good host from what I saw. I mean, he at least has a sense of humor and can keep it lively. I watch, so me and my girlfriend watch Jimmy Kimmel every night, and Anderson Cooper was actually on Jimmy Kimmel last week. And I think depending on how it goes, I think Anderson Cooper, he has a pretty good sense of humor. So I think it could be a really interesting hosting by him, because I know he said that he had been on actual Jeopardy like 3 or 4 times when they do like the celebrity one. And I think from his interview, he has a pretty good sense of humor. So I could see him and Aaron Rodgers like being the ones in contention to like actually take over. If they ever wanted to.
Well, we still have a lot of guests to see, of course, before that happens.
Yep, very true.
But I also, on top of that, I just wanted to note that that Anderson Cooper is actually the one who made the obese dying turtle flailing on its back that we always reference. He made that quote, so he is a pretty funny guy. I will say that. Arsel, did you have any thoughts on the direction Jeopardy's going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I saw the Aaron Rodgers clip because it was just like something that got thrown into. I don't know if it was I saw on Twitter or YouTube, but I thought it was pretty funny, and it was also kind of awkward because like you could tell Aaron Rodgers probably felt uncomfortable during that. I think these hosts are interesting choices. For some reason, I guess they have a hard on for like CNN anchors or something. They have like 2 of them or like 2 or 3 of them that they're rotating through. But yeah, I think it's cool. Honestly, like I don't know if this was a crazy thing, but I was kind of thinking like I was like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of ushered Jeopardy out with Trebek's death, but I'm sure he probably would have wanted to keep the show going. So it's probably good that they are. John, did you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ursula. I think it's good that they're, keeping the legacy going. And I like how they're doing different hosts and stuff, not just like selecting a host and having that be the host and then the show dying because everyone hates the host.
Yeah.
Like they're trying out different people, and I think that's pretty smart. But you know who I'd really like to see as a host?
Guy Fieri?
Steve Harvey, bro.
That would be good.
But he's already got his own show.
He's got Family Feud already.
I almost feel like he's too goofy for Jeopardy, though. Like, I feel like he really shines with Family Feud.
What is?
It would fit him really well.
Anytime on Family Feud, when somebody gives like a whack answer, he does the thing where he's like, and just like stares into the camera, and it's hilarious.
The timer wouldn't exist.
No. You know who I want?
Wouldn't exist.
You know who I want? I want Stephen A. Smith.
Oh,
that would be good.
Lay off the weed.
That is
the
not
capital of Italy is not Sicily. Lay off the weed.
That is absolutely the dumbest answer I've ever heard.
I love Stephen
That would be hilarious, Stephen A. Smith.
Yes, I would love that.
But did you guys have any more thoughts on the Jeopardy host situation?
No, I didn't.
I think we can start moving into The Shining.
Cool. So we'll go ahead. Since we got the current events got through, done.
Got done. Yeah.
We got through him, brother.
Yeah.
Got him. We got him.
Since we ran through the current events, we'll just go ahead and get on into our main topic for this week, which is a great film. I think, The Shining.
Podcasts and web shows are on the rise, and for good reason. They're great sources of entertainment and can be great listens in multitudes of situations like long drives or intense study sessions. Maybe, just maybe, you have an idea for a show or podcast that you want to put out into the world. Well, lucky for you, it's never been easier to jump into podcasting thanks to the wonderful people at Anchor.fm. Anchor takes care of most of the back-end work of podcasts. No more are the days of coordinating releases on multiple platforms, paying for a podcast hosting subscription to hold your RSS feed, or other hassles. Anchor sets up your podcast on all the major podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple automatically. They even provide sleek and easy-to-use editing tools that can be accessed from your phone or computer to get your podcast to the world through the path of least resistance. Anchor also matches you up with sponsors so that you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and even gives you in-depth stats for your shows like total plays, regions of viewership, as well as what kind of devices your show is being listened on. Here's the best part about all of this. It's free. So what are you waiting for? Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. If you're ready to add your voice and vision to the mix, it's never been easier. And I highly recommend you go the way of Anchor.fm, just like the ControllerCast did. So here you go. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor.fm.
All right, so we're going to be moving into our main topic for this week, Ghost Rider, featuring Nicolas Cage. No, just kidding. So we're going to be talking about The Shining today. So The Shining was based off of the novel by Stephen King and was directed by Stanley Kubrick. So I'm just going to give a brief plot summary of the film. So The Shining begins with like an eerie soundtrack right from the get-go, with beautiful aerial shots of the mountains with the Torrance family and their little yellow slug bug driving up toward the infamous Overlook Hotel, isolated and miles away from civilization. They came here so that the father, Jack Torrance, could solve his writer's block and finish his book. He would be a caretaker of the Overlook Hotel, but as he was warned in the first meeting of the film, the Overlook Hotel seems to have a mind of its own. And the last caretaker actually axed his entire family. Jack assures the man that cabin fever won't be a problem and that this will be like a vacation. But things soon change. So his son Danny finds out he has the shine after being offered ice cream telepathically by a character, Dick Halloran, which the shine is the ability to see things others can't and see things before they happen. Wendy, Jack's wife, is the supportive and loving mother of Danny, who also looks after the Overlook Hotel. She sees Jack slowly descend into madness, while Danny warns her of this as well. The infamous red rum line, red rum, along with infamous scenes like on the staircase where Wendy is swinging the baseball bat at her crazed husband, resonate throughout film culture and are some of the most memorable moments in the film. The film has some seriously creepy moments too, from the blood spilling out of the elevators to the scene of the decomposing woman that Jack begins making out with, to his conversations with the previous caretaker that murdered his family in the bathroom, who told Jack to murder his family, to the seemingly impossible doorways and windows that exist impossibly throughout the entire hotel. It's an unnerving film, to say the least. Jack sadly kills Dick Halloran on a blizzardy night when Danny calls him. Danny calls for Dick telepathically using his shine. But as I understand, I don't think this happened in the book. After a chase through the hotel and the famous "Here's Johnny" line after an axe to the door, the movie ends with Jack chasing his son Danny through a labyrinth outside the hotel. Danny outruns this crazed lunatic of a father, even covers his tracks. He's super smart. Jack screaming, he eventually falls over and passes out, and then he freezes to death. You then see a picture dated like during the 1920s where there's a party at the Overlook Hotel and Jack Torrance is in the photo. So that's a quick summary of the plot. So let's go ahead and move into our first impressions. Ursel, did you want to maybe start off with your first impressions of the film?
Yeah, so my history with The Shining is that like I saw it was one of those movies like I caught on TV kind of thing when I was like young, like 10, 12 years old. I watched it, thought it was cool, I guess. I was just like, oh, like I know about this movie. This is like the Here's Johnny movie, like that's kind of like that was the gist of my take of the film back then. But then recently I was like, you know what? For some reason, I want to watch this movie. So I actually I didn't end up watching it this week because I'd seen it so recently, like 3 weeks ago. so I watched the movie, and when I watched it now, I was absolutely like transfixed throughout the whole damn thing. Like seriously, you can see the influence of this film like in so many modern horror films. It's like I think it's like it's amazing. Like I think it's a masterpiece. Like so that's just my general like overhead thoughts. I don't think it's a perfect film, but I think it's like a horror it's like a horror staple. Like so that's my general thoughts. Andrew, maybe you want to talk?
So I'm like you. I didn't watch it this week because I've seen it pretty recently. But I've seen it. I hadn't seen it until actually like a couple years ago for the first time. But since then, I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times. Um, and I like the movie a lot because I like Stanley Kubrick's the direction he does when his directing. I like all that stuff. I think he's a great filmmaker, and I think the movie itself, the first time I saw it, I was like, I was kind of expecting it to be like this super scary movie, but as I watch it, it's more of like a mental horror instead of like a visual like, oh, he's walking down a dark hallway and like scream pops up or something like that. It's more of like a psychological horror movie rather than like a physical like in your face horror movie. And I mean, I never get tired of watching. I think Jack Nicholson's character is really interesting, and I think just everything about the movie is just really good, and it definitely has stood the test of time, for what I can see. So Parker, maybe you got some.
Yeah, so when I was very little, probably about 6 or 7 years old, I popped this movie into the DVD player, all right? I did not remember a single damn thing about it except for the weird music and the Here's Johnny. So I just watched it last night. With these podcasts, I always watch the movies like the night before just so I can get like a full fresh take. Um and this one I watched very late at night, which might have been a bad idea. But what I really noticed throughout my second watch through is the droning music. Like I just really noticed it this time how every situation there's a drone. I think this was a pretty new concept when The Shining came out to make it feel a lot more creepy, but that's definitely something that I noticed throughout the second watch through. Um and The Shining is just absolutely just mysterious. That's why I kept getting throughout the vibe or throughout the course of the film is that everything you can leave a lot up for interpretation. So that's one of the things I found very cool as I was going through it the second time was there's a lot that could be taken up for interpretation and depending on the person, they could have a completely different view of what happened there, or like the motive of this character. Like Jack Nicholson's character, what's the actual reason for him doing what he's doing? Nobody knows. Is it just the hotel? Is it him going crazy? There's so many different ways of thought you could take with The Shining, and that's probably the my favorite thing about it, or my favorite thing about it that I noticed on the second watch through.
Yeah, and like I think it's interesting that it seems we're all on very positive impressions. It seems like it took us maybe a couple watches. Uh, but wait, John, what were your first impressions? I feel like that's worth sharing.
Yeah, so I actually saw this movie a long time ago for the first time. My dad and I watched it, I think late at night one night. And my first impressions were like, it's anxiety inducing to say the least, especially your first watch through because you hear so much about it. And, there's such high expectations for it because you hear so much about it. And I expected it to be a lot more like in your face scary, like a scream, like Andrew said. But it wasn't like that at all. But you do see, the impact that it has had on the film industry and like the horror film industry for sure. But yeah, my first impressions were that I thought it was super interesting, anxiety inducing, but I didn't think it was that scary. But honestly, as I watch it more, I find it more scary. And, watching it now that I understand, how a person could go crazy a little bit more than when I was like 10. I think it's, a lot more scary, the more you think about it and the more things that you notice too.
I feel like
Um,
the film has a more creepy vibe than an actual scary vibe, if you know what I mean. Like where it builds so much mystery in your head.
there's so much
Like,
tension the
yeah,
entire
there's
movie.
a tension that you could cut with a knife, dude. It's
And they
just
build
absolutely
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, they build it in the first scene in the Overlook Hotel. Like Jack walks into an office that has a window, but the office is like in the middle of the Overlook Hotels and there's not a courtyard. So like it's just weird, like subtle things like that, almost subliminal that you don't
Yeah.
even notice.
Yeah.
Like I watched YouTube videos with my dad on this and figured out like that there were things like that in the movie, like architectural things within the hotel that didn't make any sense that were put there on purpose by Kubrick
Yeah.
to like give you an uneasy feeling. That was definitely not like a first impression thing. That was after like 4 or 5 watch throughs. But once you start to notice that stuff, super unnerving.
Yeah, and I think like a common thread between all of our impressions of the film were, we didn't totally get it our first time. We didn't think it was that scary. But as, maybe a second watch, third watch, maybe watching some other, like thinking on the film, letting some time pass, we came to appreciate it a lot more. And I think it's indicative of, its reception when it started out. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but when the movie came out, it was generally considered a shitty film. Like it was considered a bad film. Like if you go on, like, I don't know if anyone knows what the Razzies are, but the Razzies are, yeah. So the Razzies are the opposite of the Oscars. They're the award show for the worst of the worst movies of any respective year. And The Shining was nominated for like, Razzies because it was
What?
it was considered a bad film, and like but it's funny. It's funny because this was like this. I feel like a similar situation with Blade Runner, where it's like over time, it's developed into this film that people have appreciated over time, over multiple watches or however it may be. And just speaking on that, just because I mentioned Blade Runner, just this is worth mentioning. In the original cut of Blade Runner, uh, there was I think I mentioned there was shots of like grass, like mountains and like all this shit at the end of the film, and he actually Ridley Scott asked Stanley Kubrick to borrow those shots that you see at the beginning of The Shining, of the wilderness, all those like. So the original cut of Blade Runner, the final shots of the film are actually scenes from The Shining. So
What?
yeah, that's a that's a little connection there. But what do you guys think about the fact that this movie was kind of hated on when it first started out? Like people thought that this movie was dog shit when it came out. Like, what do you guys think about that? Andrew, maybe?
I mean, the first time I watched it, since I mean, I could kind of see where it was, because the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is like supposed to be a horror movie, but it wasn't really that scary. But the more times I watch it, the more I appreciate it. So I can definitely see where initial reception was poor, just because maybe people didn't understand it. But I think obviously as time has gone on, people have understood and come around to appreciate it.
So the reason I think this movie got such bad reception to start out with is that The Shining leaves so much up for interpretation that when people leave the theater for the first time or close it out for the first time, they're just like, "What the fuck did I just see?" Like they're still gathering themselves. So it takes that second watch, or it takes just the reviews over time, or like the theories to come out for people to start understanding, hey, this is more than just a creepy, scary film that just it leaves so much up for interpretation that it leaves so much room for thought. Like I just love that about how Stanley Kubrick directed this movie and how Stephen King wrote it, is that it you can't just watch it the first time and fully understand it. You have to really look into theories and you have to think critically to really understand what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you, Parker. I think that it does take, a couple of watch throughs of the film to really gauge how you feel about it even, and to really understand all the little nuances and stuff that are throughout the film. I don't think anyone could really like digest all of a film like this in one watch through. So I could definitely see why the initial inception wasn't, super positive, because I didn't love the film initially. But I think this is one of those movies, especially when it came out, that was just ahead of its time, honestly. So I'll just go ahead and get into the characters then. So I'll go into like the most notable characters, which I believe there are four. So there's Danny Lloyd as Danny Torrance, Red Rum. So Red Rum, annoying as hell, dude. But
oh my god,
I mean, the film wouldn't be the same without him. He's one of the most memorable characters, I think, because of the Red Rum thing. I think he actually has some really great moments too, because like there's some scenes where you see like genuine fear in his face, like his expressions and the soundtrack behind his expressions when he sees like the two previously murdered daughters in the hallway. Like it really makes you believe that he is in the story. Like he's a super good actor, I think, for his time and for his age. Then there's Jack Torrance. So Jack Nicholson, I think, does an incredible job as Jack Torrance. Arguably, the scariest aspect of the film, I think, is his demeanor and his descent into madness. It's quick, but it's believable and it's terrifying. Like he essentially is convinced by ghosts throughout the duration of the film to continue the dark and twisted legacy of the hotel and kill his family. His performances during scenes like when he's trying to type his story, exploring the hotel, like the expressions on his face, and the party with the ghosts, like that was amazing. Again, the soundtrack, like it really convinces you of his descent into madness, along with other performances like on the staircase, chasing Wendy and chasing Danny in the labyrinth at the end. I think he was for sure my favorite character in the film. Then there's Scatman Crothers. What a name. As Dick Halloran, also a good name. I think Dick is one of the most interesting characters in the film. He does a really good job at being like the anchor character. Like, I don't know if that's an actual term or not, but he's the character that like really explains what's going on behind the scenes, and like sets the tone, I feel like, for the film. Like without Dick, the Torrance family surely would have been doomed. Like after all, he drove a snowmobile to the hotel during a blizzard, giving Wendy and Danny a way out in the end, which was important since the hotel wanted them dead. Like it's insane. And then there's Wendy Torrance, Shelley Duvall. I know she gets a lot of hate, but I don't think she's a bad actress, and I like her character. Like, dude, she was subjected, as all of them were, but to insane conditions on the set. It seems like her experiences were like some of the worst, though. I know she had to redo a scene on the stairs like 97 times. Like, holy shit, that's insane. I think she did a good job as Wendy, though. Like, you're really rooting for her in the end. Like, you want her to make it out. You want her and Danny to survive. I think she really gives you like her facial expressions along with Danny's. They all do a really good job at convincing you that they're genuinely terrified. And maybe that was just they were terrified of Kubrick and having to do the scene again. I don't know. But so that's kind of like my wrap up on the characters. So what were your guys' favorite characters? Who do you guys think had like the best performances, and who had the worst? Maybe Parker, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I really think that Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall both had the most impressive performances to me. Just because they were main characters of the film, but they fit their roles so perfectly. They really did a good job of emphasizing the fear that they had, like the true anger and the fear, and just the raw emotion. Like, they did a great job of conveying that to the viewer, like that this is a real horrifying situation that both of them are in. They're basically trying to kill each other. So I thought they did a really good job of just conveying that to the audience and giving us the creepy factor. But I also like how Danny did. I'm not sure of the actor's name, but Danny's character did a really good job, I think, of showing that he was scared or frightened a lot of the time. And a child actor like that, I feel like that would be really hard to get him to say some of the creepy shit that they put in them, like the red rum, of course, but just also like the old lady in the bathtub, like the pure fear that he showed from that. That was a really great job by a child actor. You don't see that kind of performance out of a child actor that often. So I thought that was impressive as well. But Arcel, what did you want to say about the characters?
Yeah, like I think everyone in this film did like a fantastic job. Like, I think people, I might be giving this a pass here, like, you know, or I might just be a fanboy, or I don't know, whatever. Like you're watching, I feel like you're watching a Kubrick film. Like, a lot of the character decisions, specifically, like, these characters are different from the ones in the book. You know, Stephen King took issue with that. Their arcs are different, and if Kubrick went out of his way to like change these arcs, there's probably a reason behind it. Like in the book, why am I like, yeah, like Jack Torrance, like his descent is much more slow, and he's actually like a generally nice kind of guy, kind of happy-go-lucky almost in the book. But in the movie, he's kind of a little off the edge, I feel like, from the start. You know, he's a little unnerving from the beginning, and that's like that. Like, it felt so Kubrick to me when I was watching it, where I was like, you know, when he's in the damn interview, and they're just like making it so like obviously clear, like they're being so like like the interviewers being so in your face about like, yeah, this place is haunted. This place is like fucked up. And like, he's like, I can do it. And he's just got this smile on his face. And it's just like, I'm the guy for the job.
That doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Like that, right? Like to me, at least, maybe to some people that were watching it back in the day, you know, they thought, this is just some shitty acting, or this is just dumb. Like, but me watching it, like, I was like, oh, like, no, this is kind of creepy still. Like, this interview is creepy. And I think Jack Nicholson like did a fantastic job, like just keeping that sense of eeriness and creepiness throughout the whole film. All of his interactions with Shelley Duvall's character, which I'm forgetting her name. John, do you have her name? I don't know if you remember mentioning that.
Wendy Torrance?
Yeah, Wendy. I don't know. I was forgetting. Like, all of his interactions with Wendy, like, you know, you're just like, oh, like, where's this gonna go? And Shelley Duvall, and like, and I don't know if I have bias for her performance, because I know that she went through like literal hell on the shoot of this film. Like, literally has psychological issues, like with like how she was treated on this film. Like maybe I have bias with that when I look at her performance because I'm like, you can like when all of her so many of her emotions that are in this film are like her genuine emotions. Like she's like genuinely fucking like terrified and like scared for her life in some scenes because that's how she like got like Kubrick got her to that point mentally, like on the shoot. But honestly, I think because of that, like, whatever your opinions are on how he treated the actors, like they turned out amazing performances in return. But I think that's also worth maybe asking everyone, like, what do you guys think about how Shelley Duvall was treated? Because I think John touched on it a little. She was treated really bad. Like she had hair falling out during her shoots because she was under that much pressure and stress by Kubrick. Kubrick treated her like absolute shit.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, she had to do this scene on the stairs where she is like walking backwards, swinging the bat. Like, I think I read 97 times. It's either like 79 or 97. It's a ton. And that is ridiculous, dude. Even if that was the only scene that she had to do that, by today's standards, that would be unacceptable. Like Stanley Kubrick would probably be in the news, dude, for like unfair, like horrible treatment. Like I really feel for Shelley Duvall. Like her actress. It's really sad that she had to go through that. But honestly, if she's gonna leave behind a legacy, The Shining is an incredible film. And I think that she does an incredible job in it. Even though, unfortunately, I think a lot of the emotion that she does show, which seems very genuine, is very genuine because she's exhausted, you know? But what did you think? Maybe Parker or Andrew?
So you kind of took everything I had. I was gonna touch on, I think the actual number of times I saw they had to redo that scene was 104. So she was actually like at her wit's end. And like, that scene is not like, it's not like just a quick little scene. It's like a 4 or 5 minute long scene. And that ending part, she's swinging the baseball bat over and over. And in the final cut, her desperation swings are actually because she like physically could not like get together like a well done swing, because she'd done that exact thing almost, over 100 times, which is insane. And I think that kind of, ties into the Kubrick, like his directing. I think definitely what he does today, if he did that today, that would be very frowned upon. But I think, at the time, the atmosphere that Hollywood was kind of in, and just the way stuff worked back then, he was able to do that. And yeah, it created, a great movie, but at the same time, especially for Shelley Duvall, she won a Razzie, is that what it's called? She won it for worst performance, which honestly, looking back, is kind of like spitting in her face, because I mean, I think looking back, her being exhausted in that scene is what makes the scene great, and what really like adds the emotional value to it. And I think that, people at the time didn't know they redid that scene hundreds of times, which, maybe the first shot, if they would have gotten it off on the first shot somehow, maybe she wouldn't have won a Razzie. But, I don't think people at the time appreciated it. And I think they made her look like she did a terrible job, when actually I think she does probably the best besides Jack Nicholson's character. Because I think his is iconic, obviously, all the iconic scenes and lines and stuff. But I think she definitely now gets the appreciation for it. But I think it is very sad that she didn't get, appreciated at the time for it. But that scene itself is what I think that scene itself makes it like my favorite scene in the movie. Just because now that I know like the backstory on it, and now that you can watch it, and if you really pay attention, you can see like just her deteriorating mental health throughout the film. And I think that personally makes it my favorite scene, just because it's kind of like the expose where you see, you know, the mental abuse that that Jack Nicholson's character, you know, does in the film, and it just kind of shows how it wears on everybody, because, you know, she's like, you know, I want to protect Danny, and you know, and there's so it's just such a emotional, like, passion filled, you know, scene. I kind of compare it in my mind to that, you know, the scene from if you guys have seen Marriage Story, where
Yeah.
they have the big iconic, you know, the screaming match basically. But I feel like this is like you know, I think it's like similar to that. It's a very emotional and emotion filled scene that I think it shows like genuine exhaustion and emotion in both characters, just how Jack Nicholson's character acts and how Shelley Duvall's character is just like, you know, just putting up with it, really. I think it's really I think it's my favorite scene in the movie personally.
Yeah, and I think like same here. Like I would say that is also my favorite scene in the film. Like just the intensity of the whole situation is just absolutely insane. You know, like there's so much tension, you can cut it with a knife, like Parker said before. But also like kind of tying into talking about like the cinematography. You know, what is it, like the cinematography in this movie is like so amazing. And one of my other favorite scenes / shots in the film, and this is like probably maybe the most iconic shot in the film, like a single shot, is the like bloody hallways / elevators. Like when you just see that coming out in like slow motion, like there's something about it that's just like like it's creepy. It's like, it feels like, to me, like my interpretation of that is like that's like the hotel is alive, like that's like the blood of like the hotel itself or something like that, like the interior artery of the hotel. Like you're in this like giant like belly of the beast situation, which like makes it like super creepy, like because there's just so many ways you can really like head think about what this whole setting and character situation really is. But John, like, did you want to like talk about some of your favorite scenes, or the, you know, favorite scenes?
Yeah, I'm gonna play a little bit off of what you're saying, Ursel, with the blood thing. That was so unsettling. I mean, like the fact that they were able to do it too at that time and make it look so good was insane. Like, I think that was one of my favorite scenes. I believe there was a scene at the end, because like Danny was seeing that as a vision, right, throughout the entire film, and then like it actually happens, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
I believe, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Unless she's
insane
seeing
because
visions.
with that scene, it really highlights the fact that Kubrick, he doesn't spell it all out for you. Like, unless you've read The Shining, you're not going to understand from this film alone, like, what exactly is going on. And the film alone leaves a lot to interpretation, which I really like. But my favorite scene, I think, was actually the chase at the end, where Danny's like covering his tracks in the snow. Like they're so smart, or he's so smart. And then when Jack, it shows the shot of him frozen at the end. Like,
Yes.
that's iconic.
That shot right there should be a poster. Like,
everyone's
just on your
seen
wall.
that shot.
Yeah.
It's like a meme, you know. It's
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Parker, what about some of your favorite scenes?
So I just want to touch base on the previous kind of topic as well. Like, there's also, like, with Shelley Duvall and the bat swinging scene, I felt like Kubrick intentionally reshot that scene a bunch of times to kind of get some fear into Shelley Duvall for that scene. I feel like that was intentional by Kubrick, not so much that Shelley Duvall was doing a bad job, to be honest.
I agree.
So that's just something I wanted to touch base on from the previous topic. But some of my favorite scenes in the movie, I just love the here's Johnny scene and then everything after that where they're chasing through the maze, while you're going through that moment, it's just so unsettling and unnerving. Like, you're on the edge of your seat. What's gonna happen next? Is Danny gonna get caught? Will he be able to escape? Will he be able to cover his footsteps? I thought that time span in the movie was just absolutely brilliant. That I don't think any stretch of time in another movie compares to that, where it's just has you so on the edge of your seat and so unsettled that and like another area of the movie where you could cut the tension with a knife, like everything's just going down and going so crazy. I also really liked the scene in the ballroom where Jack's kind of imagining. I'm not sure if he's imagining people there or if he's just kind of traveling back in time a little bit for but where he's at the bar ordering drinks, even though there are no drinks there.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of people. Like, he ran into somebody and spilled a drink. Oh, I'm trying to think of the butler's name. What's the butler's name again?
Oh, I can't remember either.
I don't know.
But he was the previous caretaker
Yeah.
of the hotel.
But the butler told Jack, "You have always been the caretaker."
Yeah.
So that I think that's something I want to get into a little bit later, like once we get into the theories. But
I was gonna say that was actually one of my favorite shots, or one of my favorite scenes in the film was in the bathroom.
Yeah, like where they're talking and they just kind of hash out, like, do you really like kind of taking care of your family, like what needs to be done? Like, the butler was the father of those two previously murdered girls. So that's another thing that we could talk about in theories. But those two scenes right there encapsulate the film in my eyes. Like, that's where you get so much information and you learn so much about Stanley Kubrick and the cast. I feel like those are the most impactful scenes of the movie. But
So I know you had mentioned the scene where all the people are, when he's at the bar and there's all the people at the event, and going through that, I mean, that's one of the major examples I can think of. The other one I think of is Danny going down the hallway and seeing the twins. That's an iconic shot right there. Like John said, the blood coming through the elevator door. And I think, I just full disclosure, I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is also by Kubrick, and I love the cinematography in that movie. I love how he's always, kind of like a wide angle picture where the person takes up just like exactly right down the middle of the shot.
Yeah. And
you can see the atmosphere around him. Like in 2001, I can think of one of the astronauts, walking with his suit and the oxygen tank through that white and black, corridor. I can think of that. I think that's something that Kubrick does well is, his vision for how he wants it to, like, visually appear. And I think he does a really good job of that. And the way that he is able to, kind of incorporate, on the sound side, he has, during, the bat scene, for example, there's like this super loud, droning bass throughout the whole thing, which kind of like, gets you really invested in the verbal argument that's going on in the scene. And I think, the way he can combine the cinematography and sound is very impressive, especially like, the opening scene, it's going, over like rivers and mountains, and there's like that super loud, sound, the little like synth noise that's just constantly going. And, I think the sights and the sounds are something that Kubrick does really well. And I think he's universally appreciated for it. So you don't need me to, give like an Oscars pitch for him, but I know Arso, you're really big on cinematography. So what are kind of your thoughts on the movie's cinematography and sound design?
Yeah, just like, I mean, Kubrick and his cinematography and his style in general, I just feel like it's so ahead of his time. Like, just, I mean, think about it. 2001. Go watch that movie because you should. It's a classic, but
Great
still,
movie.
like,
Great
great
movie.
movie. That movie came out 53 years ago, and you would not think that when you're watching the movie. You would think that movie is fairly recent, like maybe something from the 90s. Hell, maybe even the early 2000s. Like, it looks very modern, and that's just a testament to how ahead of his time Kubrick was. I think he's like a top 5 all-time director, because you can just tell now, years detached from so much of his work, how influential it was, and that goes into cinematography as well. These like slow droning, slow panning shots that just they're long takes. They follow the characters. There's not like fast cuts. It's not like ADHD filmmaking. It's slow, it's patient. You see that so much in today's films. A lot of this Shining. Like for a modern day film, a movie that reminds me a lot of is Hereditary. Like just from the shots, the story of a family like decaying. I think there's a lot of similarities between that film, and I love Hereditary as well. So I think the cinematography is fantastic, and I think Kubrick in general is just an auteur. But John, I know you're a big Kubrick fan, and I know you probably appreciate the cinematography as well. So did you want to chime in?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the cinematography and the sound design in this film is second to none, honestly. Uh, there aren't really a lot of films today, even that I feel like would match up to what Kubrick did with this. Like, just one scene that comes to mind is the scene where Jack is just staring blankly ahead. Like he's in that turtleneck, staring blankly ahead, and it's literally like a minute. Like it's just, and the sound too, all of the sound and the deep bass and stuff, it tells a story on its own. Like I feel like you could watch this movie as a blind person and understand what's going on, like without any like assistance. It's insane. The sound itself tells a story, but the cinematography is amazing as well. Like the scene in the beginning where it must be a helicopter, because I don't think drones were, I mean, they wouldn't be a thing in the 80s, so it was probably a helicopter. And that shot is so smooth and so slick. And like you mentioned, Ursula, it was used in Blade Runner, which I think is really cool, but it was probably because it was such an expensive shot. And you can easily pull that off today with drones, but even like before drones, in like what, 2010, that would have been a pretty impressive shot. So Kubrick was definitely ahead of his time, and I think this movie was ahead of its time, which kind of also uh lends its hand to how it was perceived in the beginning. But we all know that it's a classic. I think anybody that's listening has seen it and know that it's a classic. But what did you think about the cinematography and sound, Parker?
So one thing that stood out to me really throughout this movie was the sound. Um, like I just noticed a drone. Like throughout the whole entire movie, you'd hear a drone, and it just made it so much creepier. Like that kept me on the edge of my seat more than the actual like footage did. Like as the music just got more intense, and the drone just would get louder as things would get more intense. Um, and that's really what I loved about the movie. It used the sound to tell a story, like you said, John. Um, and it added such a creepy factor to it that there's no way you can keep your eyes off the screen during the movie. And also the cinematography is amazing as well. Like with the blood coming out of the elevator scene is just the most iconic one to me, because imagine what they had to do to make that shot happen. Um, it's probably not easy to make it look super real, like it's actual blood coming from the elevator, but they
I don't think it
managed
was
to do that.
CG.
Yeah,
It
so
wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't
yeah,
CG.
they made it look perfect, and I I just feel like Kubrick did a great job of incorporating all the elements together to give you a feel and make you feel a certain kind of way throughout the movie, which is really impressive. That he knew how to do that so well. So with the cinematography and the sound, I was just really impressed with both throughout the course of this movie, and I wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest with you. But we'll move on to the hotel setting. So I just want to talk about this a little bit because it's a big factor in how the people act and the motives of the people involved. So the hotel is set in Boulder, Colorado, in the middle of the mountains, where there's no way to get there unless you're on a snowmobile, pretty much, or if the roads are open. But in this certain situation, there was a snowstorm, so the hotel was trapped. So that was another feeling of creepiness that Kubrick added to the movie that I really like. I feel like if they were just able to get out super easily, and there's a way out per se, that would make it a lot less on the edge of your seat, a lot less creepy. So I'm glad that they added that element into there, where it was kind of desolate and kind of in a barren area. The hotel almost seems like it's living, with how the balls keep showing up again, where I should say it a different way. The parties keep showing up for Jack, and where he sees the whole party there, and he's able to drink there. Also, like, I'll reference this again, but the blood in the elevator, like, the hotel has a mind of its own, and it's able to communicate with these people. I just wanted to know your guys' thoughts on how the hotel conveys a vibe throughout the course of the movie. Why don't we start with you, John?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on this earlier, but I think the most interesting thing about the hotel itself, and you actually notice this if you really like watch and do some research, but there are certain scenes where like the pattern on the floor will change, but like no one has left the room, like it's the same room, but you see a ghost and the pattern on the floor has changed. It's almost like, the veil has been opened or whatever, and the Overlook Hotel, has come alive in those scenes, and it's different. Things move around. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but there are like statues and stuff that'll move around throughout the movie in certain scenes. And then like the scene with Dick Halloran when he's talking to Wendy and Danny, they like go through a door and come out like another door that doesn't even make sense. Like they come out the same side, they walk through the door, and instead of coming out on the other side, they come out on the same side they walked through. It's like super, super weird thing, super like subliminal things that are throughout the movie that really like make you feel uneasy. And the setting itself of the hotel being so far off also lends itself well to the story, and that there really is no way out, and you're kind of trapped at the Overlook Hotel, and that alone makes it feel like the hotel is alive and like it's just waiting for its next victim.
Yeah, and like kind of I wanted to talk about one point you said, John, with like Dick Halloran is like this like it creates like such a like alive feeling that something feels off. And also one of the creepiest shots to me, I don't know why, in the film was when when Danny like telepathically communicates with Dick, and it's like the shot of it like zooming in on Dick, and it's like him asking for the ice cream, but it's just like him looking at him. I don't know, there's something like there's just something super creepy about that shot. But yeah, I think the layout of the hotel is super interesting, how it's like one big imagery that's very popular in the film is like mazes, and the maze out, like people say like there's the maze outside of the hotel, but the hotel itself is a maze. It's set up like a maze. You get lost in it, and it doesn't make sense. Like things are changing in the hotel, and that's another thing. You can tell there was intention behind all these things that were being done by Kubrick, and it's just, there's so much to dissect. Like we're talking about damn shit, like the props moving around in the in the shots, like, and there's so much to dissect with something as simple as that, because you can tell that there's intent behind it. It's not just errors. They're, like you said, John, they're leaving the room and then entering back on the same side and all this. Like, there's so much intent, even with like Andrew, I think you might get into that with like some of the theories. But yeah, did you want to talk about it, Andrew?
Yeah, so I think I got a couple of main things on the hotel setting. So tying it in with the cinematography, I think a lot of the shots that we appreciate today are only made possible because of the hotel setting. Because you think of Danny seeing the twins in the hallway, like you have to have like a very narrow corridor, like a hotel where you got rooms on each side. The blood coming out of the elevator, not as narrow, but it's still like a corridor, and then the hotel having multiple levels in the lobby adds to the bat scene, because Jack's character is walking up the stairs while Shelley Duvall is backing up, just trying to swing in desperation. So I think the whole hotel setting really adds to the cinematography. And then John, you and Arcel mentioned stuff moving around, and different little things like coming out of the same way, which a lot of people have picked up on, and it has led to some pretty wild theories. And people, so the main theory that I saw that I thought was really interesting, that I can kind of get on board with, there's a couple of holes in it, but we'll just go with it because I like to think of it as the real theory. So there's a theory that this, after the original part when Jack's typing at night, there's a theory that after that scene, the rest of the movie is actually the book that he's writing. So a couple of things people noticed was, stuff moves, it changes positions based on, what part of the movie you're in. So the main one that people noticed was a wooden sculpture that is present in the first part of the movie is not present in the second part after that scene. The typewriter changes color. And then they noted some of the stuff, like you said, where they, come in one side, walk through, and come out the same side. So a lot of people think that, like a book being like a fiction type of thing is just something that is put in the book as a work of fiction, where it doesn't necessarily have to make sense. It's just the way the story is told, they come out the same way. But that could also, there's also other theories on that stuff, saying how Arcel, you mentioned with the blood in the elevator, how the hotel is alive. So people think that them, some of the stuff, like John's example, they come, like the hotel is like moving as they're doing something, so then it makes it look like they're walking through, coming out the other side. I think the theories really add to it, and I think it's kind of a testament to how good the movie is, that people can want to watch it enough to analyze it this deep, just to come up with explanations for everything. I know, Parker, you had a couple of things that you mentioned earlier that you wanted to speak on it in the theory section, so I'll let you take the reins from here.
I know Arcel wanted to talk about this soon, but I really wanted to touch on this in the theories section. So at the end of the movie, there's a final shot that you see of Jack in 1921 and the group of people at the 4th of July ball. And my theory behind this shot is honestly that that Jack is reincarnated, and he's just the recurring caretaker. Like, I believe that Jack is just a figure that comes back and brings more people into the hotel to murder them. Like, it's just when the butler tells him in the bathroom that he's always been the caretaker, I really took something from that. I was like, does that mean that this Jack figure has he always been the caretaker, and does he just reincarnate himself, and like, does he just keep grabbing more and more people to bring here to murder? That's one of the theories that I really wanted to touch base on, because I thought that that was a big deal. Like, I didn't think the butler was actually the one who killed his children. I think Jack was the figure that did it, and that's just a recurring theme. Did you guys think that there was any substance to this theory, or am I just kind of bullshitting?
Yeah. So like,
No, dude, that's got to be it.
well, like
that's like actually got to be it.
Like my theory on the whole final shot, and just like some of the theories in general were like, I think it is kind of more of a case of like the hotel is like, is it a living entity to some extent? You know, like I think there's a lot of allusions to that too, that it's watching them, you know, like it feels like there's kind of that sense, that eeriness to it as well. But so my interpretation of like the final shot of the film is like, those, maybe that ballroom he's in, right? He's with the other caretakers, just like how he stumbled across the old caretaker, you know, like it's all these old caretakers, and he's in the next line of caretakers that are essentially, you know, sucked into the hotel. You know, they become a part of the hotel. They become taken over by the hotel, you know, their mind and body. But then at the end, that's the, you know, visual representation of them being kind of officially a part of the hotel, being taken over by the hotel, and devoured by the beast, essentially. That's my interpretation of the final shot. Everyone in that picture is like a victim of this monster, essentially. But John, what about you? I'm sure you have some takes on everything we've said. We've all given it different different views on
it. Well, no, I kind of agree with some of what everyone said. I think it's kind of, you know, almost like a Monster House situation.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it like literally, like, this hotel has a life of its own, and it wants to, I guess, murder people in Stephen King's narrative. But I think that, you know, what Parker said really resonates with me the most, because I didn't really actually have a set in stone theory on what I thought was, you know, the entire story and what was actually going on. But I think what Parker said is probably what resonates with me the most. Like, I think that that picture at the end definitely really suggests that Jack was always the caretaker. And like the butler in the bathroom said it. Like, I think that Jack, you know, had a past life, had these two daughters, and murdered them. And I think that, you know, he attempted to do it again, but failed. So I think that, you know, that's probably what I would go with as, you know, what the like best theory would be. It is interesting to note, you know, when he starts writing, like everything starts changing from there. But I think that when he starts writing, it's almost just that's beginning his descent into madness and being taken over by the hotel.
All work and no
play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yep. But those are my thoughts on the theories.
What do you guys think of like the whole like 217 to 237 like hotel number room change? Because you know how people think like a theory of that is like it's giving credence to like Stanley Kubrick helped fake the moon landing.
Yeah, that's another.
I didn't really think anything of
theory.
that. I didn't think anything of the room change, to be honest. If in fact I thought maybe, you know, despite Kubrick doing everything so intentionally, I almost thought that was just an accident, or that he just wanted to change it just to be like, F you, Stephen King.
Yeah, I think I've heard somewhere that like the reason it was like that was on a request for the hotel, actually. Like the hotel didn't want to they wanted to keep demand low for like a certain room because they didn't want 217 more to like get even more overbooked or some shit. So he was like, okay, whatever, I'll make it 237. But
Makes
like,
sense.
but people
Oh,
like
okay.
take it as credence to the fake moon landing and all that. And it's funny because like we just gave like all kind of different views on it, and there's still even more out there. You know, like there's even the question of like, what if it was just cabin fever at the end of the day? Like, what if it was actually just him, you know, losing his damn mind instead of some supernatural existence of things? But I think from there, like, I think that's a pretty good way to wrap up a lot of our views on the topic. But I just want to talk about this also, that there's a sequel that actually came out for The Shining a few years ago called Doctor Sleep. I already got pretty good reviews, but like, do you like what do you guys think about that? Just that, you know, there's a sequel. Are you guys interested in a sequel? Personally, I think I'm more interested in this film based off of like Kubrick's master craftsmanship, um, than like maybe the lore of The Shining. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't really have any. I've seen like the previews and stuff for. I think it's called Doctor Sleep, right?
Yeah, Doctor Sleep.
Yeah, I personally I don't have any intention to watch it because, like you said, Arso, I really like. The reason I like this movie so much is just because of the Kubrick parts. The direction and the sound and everything that makes it so great. Personally, I'm not interested in it. I heard it was like all right. It's kind of a cool idea, I guess, to have a sequel. But John, maybe you got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I had seen the sequel, I think, on HBO Max recently. And my fiance and I, Casey, watched a trailer. And we didn't really, it didn't seem that interesting to us. Like, I like the ambiguity of The Shining. Like, I don't really need to know, what happens to Danny. I don't really care. Stephen King wrote the book on it. Like, he had intention behind making a sequel, obviously, but from a film perspective, I don't think it's necessary. It's cool they did it. I'm not gonna watch it. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts. It doesn't seem that interesting to me. But what did you guys think?
What about you, Parker?
Yeah, I personally didn't even know there was a sequel. So I'm just learning about this now, but I probably won't be interested in seeing it because I just want to leave a lot of the questions from The Shining unanswered. Like, I feel like that's what makes The Shining so great, is that Kubrick just left a lot of questions out there for you to answer yourself. And that's a part of the movie that I really enjoyed, that I feel like you can't really take away from it. So I feel like a sequel just is unnecessary in the first place. Just leave the questions unanswered and let people have their own views on it. Especially since it's not directed by Kubrick. I just don't get the point of a sequel at this point in time. I don't get the point in a sequel ever, to be honest. Just let it end how it ended and move on. But
yeah. Well, I guess, does everyone want to, like, Parker, maybe you can start off, like, final thoughts and a rating?
Yep. So The Shining is an absolutely brilliant movie. This is a top 10 for me, for sure. Just the overall cinematography, the leaving you on the edge of your seat. That's everything I'm looking for in a movie. It was so ahead of its time. You could always rewatch it and get something new out of it. I'm giving The Shining a 9.3 out of 10.
I think we're going by 0.5s.
0.5s. I will give a 9.5 out of 10 for The Shining. It's that good. It's always worth rewatching. You can always ask a new question every time you watch it. There's just so many thoughts that go through your head, and you don't want to take your eyes off the screen. There's so many movies I watch where I'll look at my phone for a few minutes because this part's boring, like Godzilla vs. Kong. Like, I did not want to watch the full length of that movie, but with The Shining, I wanted to watch every second of it. I wanted to know everything that was going on because I wanted to answer a bunch of questions that were going through my head. So it's just so good. I have really no other way to say it. Like I just absolutely love The Shining. But Arcel, you want to give us your rating and final thoughts?
Here, yeah. So I think this movie is like a classic. I think it's a masterpiece. And I've been kind of debating on this for a little bit, but I do think it's a masterpiece. I think it's the perfect example of something like a masterpiece. Something that's viewed as a benchmark for the genre, something that's viewed as a hallmark film. The outside of the genre, it's culturally recognized in so many ways. I think all the performances are amazing. I think that it's probably my favorite Kubrick film. I think, and that's a huge compliment on my part, because I think a lot of his movies are so masterclass, ahead of its time, amazing. And I think this is my favorite Kubrick film, and I think this movie was way ahead of its time. I think Kubrick was way ahead of his time, and everything about this film, just they're so interesting. Like, we didn't even get into everything when we talked about it for so long. Like, we could talk about this movie all day because it's just such a rabbit hole of a film. Honestly, I didn't really think this when we started, but I'm gonna give it a 10. I'm gonna give it a 10 because I think it's the perfect example of what a 10 is in terms of, like, yeah, it has issues. You could nitpick it, but it is a hallmark of the genre. It is a hallmark of cinema, and I think it'll be culturally and historically remembered. So that's my take on The Shining. 10 out of 10. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, this is a movie that is will go down as, like, a classic. It already is a classic. What am I saying? Go down as? It's a movie that it's very masterful in the acting, masterful in the cinematography, masterful in the sound design. It's just a well thought out movie. With all the Easter eggs, all the little, all the theories that's popped up just because of intentional stuff that Kubrick did. So I would give it a 9.5. I think, I think it's an amazing film. Something about it, anytime I rate it, something about it misses that masterpiece mark, like you had, Arcel. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with the film. It's just, in my mind, it doesn't really reach that.
Yeah. 9.5 to 10 distinction at that is, like, totally up to personal, like, mental head stuff at that point.
Yeah, I would give it a 9.5, personally. So I'm on par with Parker, on that. I think it's great. So 9.5 out of 10.
I think this film, I think it really pushed forward the genre in general. And whenever a movie does this, I think it's well deserving of a very high score. I think that, what it did and what Kubrick was able to do was so ahead of its time, and that even for today, even for today's standards, it really holds up really well compared to other horror films. And I think that even though it came out in the 80s, it is, like, the best horror film of all time. So with that being said, I think my rating is going to be a 5 out of 10. Greatest
horror movie, 5.
Because horror films are bad. I would give it a 10 out of 10 easily. I mean, the movie pushed forward the genre. There's freaking film classes about this movie. There's just so much to dissect. And like Ursula said, I think that, we could really talk about this all day. But I think that we got, what we wanted to say out there. So with that, I want to thank everyone for listening today. Please, rate and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to. Share with your friends if you enjoy. If you're listening now, you're getting something out of it. So share with your friends, we really enjoy making these. So we hope that you're enjoying listening.
And
So
give
thank
us
you guys for
feedback.
listening.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
everyone
we'll
for
take
listening.
feedback too.
Yeah. Thanks,
sure.
everybody.
If you think this is terrible, tell us. Let us know.
Tell us.
We can't get better unless you guys tell us.
Yep.
Tell us
But-
if we're bad.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. That's me signing off.
We'll talk to
Thank
you
you
later.
everybody.
everyone for listening. Have a great day.
Every night fucks every day up. Every day touches the night up. Oh God, you should match it, it's the KO. No white lighters till I fuck my 28th up. 1998, my family had the act. Oh, the legend. Kept at least 6 discs and a changer. Back on Boswell and Percy had it active. Couple bishops in the city building mansion. Oh, the reverend. Preaching self-made millionaire static. A week that only eat at Shoney's on occasion. After Trina hit, I had to transfer capital. Your apartment, I didn't use is where I waited. Staying with you when I didn't have a habit. Fucking on you when I didn't own a mattress. Working on the way to make it out of Texas. Every night, baby, you're the only woman I should.